When to launch your second product. In this lesson, you're going to discover how you make the decision on when to launch your second product. So we have already covered variations, and this can be an easier and cheaper way of adding a second product. However, this lesson is going to be about when to add a completely new product to your brand. You can, if you wish, use the guidelines for deciding on when to add a variation too. So, the best time to expand your brand. So, there is no definable best time to add a second product to your brand. There are simply too many different permutations. So, we are going to give you some potential options, and you will need to decide what fits your situation. At the end of the day, it becomes a decision that you have to make for your business. Sooner rather than later is a good approach, but make sure you are not stretching yourself too much to do it. So if your first product is established. So a good time to launch a second product is when your first is established. But what exactly does established mean? It can mean different things, and to a certain extent can depend on your situation too. But let's look at a couple of examples. Self-sustaining. So for instance, once your first product has consistent sales without relying on the launch strategy and discounts. These sales need to make your product self-sufficient. In other words, the monthly sales generate enough cash flow so you can place the next inventory order without having to add more capital. Now, ideally, this should be delivering enough cash to enable you to fund your first order of your next product. And in this situation, the decision is pretty straightforward. Your first product is making enough to sustain itself and fund the launch of your second product. Status quo. Even if your product is self-sustaining, it might not be generating enough profit yet to finance your second product. If that is the case, then you need to make a decision on whether you want to invest more capital. However, if you are not in a position to invest more, then simply wait until your first product generates enough money for you to do so. Make sure you follow all the advanced marketing tactics from this and the next module in order to get your product making more profit and so increase your cash flow. How about if your product is not self-sustaining? So in the event your product is not self-sustaining, after placing several inventory orders, then you have a different decision to make. Option 1, you might reduce the inventory order for the existing product to make it easier to fund the second product. Option 2 is to continue to try and build up the product to make it self-sustaining and profitable enough to fund the second product. Again, make sure you're using all the advanced marketing strategies we've taught you in the course. So, if you have capital available. So, if you have capital at hand, then you do not have to wait for your first product to finance your second. But be careful not to jump the gun. You should still be confident your first product is in a good place. And as a general rule of thumb, again, it should be self-sustaining. Just remember, adding a second product means you will have to split your focus to a certain extent and will require more work. Critically important. Do not order your second product unless you have sufficient funds to purchase and launch it. The launch is likely to be cheaper if you are following the brand mindset, as your first product launch has built a ready-made audience. But you still need to do your research and make sure you can afford it. The last thing you want is to strangle your cash flow so both products suffer. General rule of thumb: launch your second product as soon as it makes sense to do so. However, make sure it does not restrict you either in terms of cash flow or time. Remember, you should have a ready-made audience to launch your second product, so it should be easier and cheaper. If your first product is struggling, then make sure you apply all the strategies and tactics taught in the course. If it still struggles, then potentially look at putting it on hold and launching a second product instead. So we covered how to decide when to launch your second product and the things you need to take into account. In the next lesson, you will discover how you can choose your second product using some different strategies from those that you used to select your first product. But that's it for this lesson. Take care.